Okay, turn 19, let's talk wars, and ignore me summoning all my monoliths. So, over on the front that involves Berytos, let's have a look here. Looks like Relay came ashore, took a Beridian province, so this one here, 222, in the Beridian cap circle. Note that Berytos itself has 150 unrest. My bet, blood hunting, big blood hunting in the capital. Probably by Dismarter, which is one of the heroes. Anyway, so Relay came ashore and then smacked into Makoni, and Makoni actually got dumped pretty bad because, again, it was a force that was made up mostly of siege chaff, in this case ghouls, who got slaughtered by the slave guardians. Let's have a quick look. So Makonian troops match up very, very well against slave guardians, but this not so much, especially with the banishment coming in. Is that just a regular level 1 priest? Doesn't matter, it's still going to hurt. And that's level 3 prophet. So, ghouls with their mighty 8 magic resistance and 10 hit points, very vulnerable to that kind of thing. Not to mention the Relay troops are pretty good to begin with. So, oof. Ooh, and they do rout some off. Interesting. But I don't think they'll get off the field before the battle is over. Some of them, very few, get off the field. Anyway, so Makoni loses their mercenaries. The High Magus and the Ghouls are a mercenary company. The others are just ordinary losses. That's fine. What else on that front? Looks like Helheim reclaimed a province from independence, showing off one of their armies in the process. Berytos just raided a province back from Helheim. Was there any other action on that front? Orm attacked Berytos in one. So this looks like a big army of Ormish axe warriors and some Ormish longdead against a tiny, well, not tiny, a moderate Beridian force, but big army beats small army early in the game. So for the loss of 13 longdead and 1 axe warrior, they killed a priest, spearman, PD, etc., and took this province. So let's have a look at the shape of this battle, this war quickly. Orm has thrown Berytos off this fort. Here, actually, no, did they take the fort? Yeah, they took the fort. So Orm has now secured a fort. Berytos is pushed Helheim back just a little bit, linking themselves back up with Makoni, which is probably why Helheim didn't resist this happening. It's fine to have Berytos border more Makonian provinces. And Berytos is defending their 2 provinces right here, while Relay got a little piece of the action, bumping Makone in the process. What else happened? Pangaea is still expanding. Hinnom probing a interesting indie province, which includes an ice druid and some winter wolves, but that doesn't look too intimidating. We saw that one. Caelum attacked Saramatia, but was defeated. Well, Caelum didn't have much left to begin with, so look, killing 5 Oropada is something that you like. That's a turn of production or more, but doing it for the loss of 25 Meria, so Raptorian Sacred Warriors, not worth. So this is ongoing death knell for Caelum. TNN attacked Yomi and won. This is interesting. So we had 3 die only. Ooh, let's have a look at this. Let's have a look at this. Although, straight off the top, I'm telling you, these losses do not favour TNN, given their current circumstances. 8 Sacred, 6 Shi, 6 Firbolg for 11 Freespawn Akka Oni and 6 Ko Oni. Only one of the actual valuable Kuro Oni, and none of the Die Oni look like they died. So, Sacred Blob versus disparate, like, Oni spam. What are the Die Oni doing? They're running their buff scripts. One races forward and gets in there early. The Despoiler of the Blessed Isle, which is a pun on Femoria. And Eriu later on. So it's playing on both of those. I'm getting the feeling Headloss doesn't like Partholonians. Wow, okay, so it's just a morale failure. All the Dionis run off as a result of losses to, I presume, the PD and the mainline Oni. That's awkward because I don't think anything was stopping those Dioni at that point. Anyway, this is a significant loss to what's left of TNN's forces, but they do reclaim a province. Nothing wrong with that. Oh, and then this happened. Okay, so Agartha has come in, and Agartha, having done basically no fighting, has gone onto TNN's capital, and TNN has tried to push them off. Problem: all these Olms. I apologize for how loud that must be, by the way. But here, once again, we see the masked battery mind blast effect. There's very little TNN has that can resist this. They're summoning like phantasmals, but there's even the Agarthan god here, who's going to bring a fear aura into play. Like, you would need a lot more summonables to make this worth. All those sacreds are getting killed when they're paralyzed. That said, the Orms are now out of ammunition. They're going to come forward and use their life drains, which are nowhere near as dangerous when you think about it as the Mind Blast plus other troops. So, another 12 tour, 4 Shi, Firbolg, Commander, and most importantly, the province of TNN is still besieged by Agartha. We'll check if it's broken in a second. Giant Spine, Yomi moved into TNN and won. And we saw that one before. So let's have a look at TNN. Yeah, TNN's broken. Fascinating. Okay, so TNN it's only a 250 wall integrity fort. Some nations get 500 capitals, some nations get 250s. TNN is in the 250 category, which means that Agartha has a choice. They can storm now, or they can bring in even more Pale One warriors and Orms, but they can probably take it with what they've got here. Meaning, despite having fought basically no conflict here, I think Agartha is going to snip up a fair amount of this territory and TNN's cap. Like, Yomi's going to get... Like, let's call a spade a spade. TNN and Fulmoria are going to lose this war. Unless Agartha now attacks Yomi, because they're going to lose they're going to lose everything. None of them have any income. None of these TNN provinces are linked to a fort. Fulmoria only has an under siege capital, so they're getting, 40... Like, they're getting some fraction of their normal income. Same with TNN. They're just getting some income from inside the fortress. It's nothing. They have no production. They've lost. This war that was very heavily weighted against Yomi a couple of turns ago is lost. Because both, because of some good play by Yomi, a little bit of luck, and Agartha's entry to just put the nail in the coffin. But even if Agartha hadn't entered, I think Yomi was doing a very good job dealing with TNN armies up to this point. Now, there's still one force down here, which is going to have, 11 sacreds left that could do some stuff, but it's surrounded by Dione, all of whom, so they fled to different provinces, and they can now cover ground. One of the provinces, how many options do they have? They have 4 options. If Yomi can cover all 4 options, or close to, they'll eventually be able to herd this army and kill it. And there's also no ability to pay upkeep for it after a while because the economy just won't support it. So this war is going to be over soon. We'll keep an eye on it and see how it tracks. But props to Agartha for the steal. Meanwhile, Saramatia looks like they'll be closing out Caelum soon. Only Caelum itself remains, and one isolated province off over here, which they don't get income from. Soon, Caelum will be under siege. And in quick succession, we may see TNN, Fulmoria, and Caelum all fall quite quickly, which I wouldn't have called a couple of turns ago. At least not TNN falling quite quickly. In fact, we might see TNN fall first because it's currently breached, whereas it'll take a while for Yomi to break the gates of Fulmoria, even with their Yomi siege strength. Anyway, I'm not meant to dwell. I'm not going to do a national focus specific this turn. I'll save it for next turn. Let's jump into turn 21. I said 21, but I forgot I was in turn 19, so we're actually in turn 20 now, and for some nations, it is now practically over. The first cap has fallen, and it is right here in TNN. Agartha, who have been at war for 3 turns, moved in against the TNN fortress. There was precious little left. Precious little, and with this many Olms, even the wall defenders weren't that much of a threat. Plus, you have an Earth Snake backing them up at the end. But you can see basically all the archers are paralyzed. There's not enough sacreds in the gate to hold the line. TNN's troops absolutely stomp Pale Ones. Pale Ones will never hit them unless they're paralyzed and twitching on the floor, in which case even the Pale Ones can manage. So, not with a bang, but with a heck of a headache and a migraine and a mercy killing on the ground, TNN's capital falls to the mighty Pale Ones of Agartha. Now, this is a big boon for Agartha. They took Pack Woods this turn as well. Now, Yomi did stake a claim up to here, so that Agartha didn't get all the clay, but they'll get this one too. But Agartha has claimed a good number of provinces, including the 300 income, more once they get their scales on it and get that unrest down, and the 7 gems, 6 gems? 6 gems. 6 in the early, 5 in the middle, 4 in the late, from the TNN's capital. That's a big win for Agartha that was already a relatively good-sized nation. Meanwhile, the elves, it wasn't enough that they lost their capital this turn. They had another bit of a reverse. So I said that Yomi could cover, or try and cover. Well, that wasn't it. Was that it? No. Where was the fight? Here. That Yomi could try and cover every province that the remnants of the TNN force could move to. With the help of a PD dump, they did. TNN moved to the one province that Yomi couldn't reinforce with like a super combatant chassis, and they instead, well, they did. They had one Dione, but they couldn't bring the rest of them to bear. They probably would have struggled against even one. Yomi added a PD dump on top of that to just add insult to injury, cut the retreat path over here. So it was just a few routers they cleared up, which means that the entire non-stealth element of the TNN force is gone. That includes 2 Bane Shi, a Fearbolg, the Shi champion. This looks like the command core is gone. This may even have been the PD patrolling it out, I'm not sure. But 31 PD certainly speaks to an attempt to either patrol, dump, block, something. Either way, Haerdalas has trapped and destroyed what could have been a persistent raiding force, which means these Dione are now free. Maybe he'll send them over here to Femoria, because I imagine that'll be breaking moderately soon. This is a 500 wall integrity, but it does have 90 Oni besieging it. So, this war will soon be coming to a close. There is the task of seizing Femoria and occupying one last TNN province. Agartha likewise has one last province, Chibia, to take. But other than that, Agartha's looks like they're sitting quite pretty, actually. Up here, Caelum is preparing for their last stand. They've recruited a whole bunch of mammoths. I'm not sure how they afforded that. I'm not sure why they're prioritizing that. I'm not sure about anything, really, but they do look like they're getting ready to stage their last stand with the help of their mammoths, whereas Saramatia is linking up a whole bunch of Oropada, Bone Fiends, Shades, Undead, Lancers, the whole kitchen sink, and they're going to be coming for Caelum relatively soon. On the other front, that's a ping. We saw that. All moving into Helheim with its thrice-horned boar and a small escort. We saw that. Relay clearing some independence. So Relay, and that's a valuable province too. 102 income, Whalewind Waters. That's a good pickup for Relay. And this means that expansion underwater is basically finished, except for the throne that Atlantis has surrounded and will probably claim, the Throne of Fortune. So far as thrones go, it looks like Yomi has encircled one throne down here. Agartha is proximate to this throne here. And they're in a good position to claim that relatively soon, as long as Yomi doesn't jump on it. But it is in Agartha's cap circle, so I feel like that would stress whatever alliance exists between Yomi and Agartha. And there does seem to be at least strong cooperation. I'm not sure if it's a full alliance, but it's certainly a co-belligerency with Yomi and Agartha versus the elves so far. We'll see how that evolves. Nothing still from Pangaea. Relatively passive Pangaea play so far, and relatively few moves on this front. It actually looks like Meconi pulled back to consolidate their armies, so they're now 2 big Meconian blobs. And likewise, Berytos has grouped up in their 2 fortresses in sort of a defensive position, including starting to summon Seirim in their Wasteland province, using the blood hunting that they're doing in their capital, which has now pushed their capital to 128 unrest, which has reduced their income to 125 and means they cannot recruit in their capital. Meanwhile, Relay just, as we saw before, poached this province here, because why not poach the pond? I'd be a little worried that this province here is going to be counter-raided and I would be either destroyed or trapped or something, but yeah, it's Bold and Stolen, and he's being a cheeky bastard, seeing what he can get away with. So, what do we want to zoom in? I want to zoom in on the Forgotten War, Xibalba. So Xibalba is still under siege. It is besieged basically just by Basalt Kings. And I don't know what Atlantis is doing. I think they're waiting to bring up siege strength or troops or something. But Xibalba is not breached. So despite them being one of the first nations rushed down, in fact, the first nation rushed down, They look like they'll be standing longer than Femoria, certainly longer than TNN, and maybe longer than Caelum. We'll see how long the bats can make the Atlantean sweat. I'm just not seeing a big Atlantean army, and 2 Basalt Kings might be good to hold it down for a turn or two, but I really want a screening army of those superior Atlantean troops who can deal with masses of bats or masses of scorpions to arrive and help break the walls, because 2 Kings... This may only be 250 wall integrity, but if you've got a bunch of flyers as siege defense, you're not getting anywhere quickly. Anyway, that is turn 20. Let's go to turn 21 and then summarize how the game's evolved over the last 3 turns. Okay, it's turn 21, and for TNN, the war is over. Agartha picked up an independent province, but also a TNN province this turn as they fanned out from their fancy new capital, while Yomi put the final dagger into TNN's primary empire over here, meaning that when we open the menu, we can see that Shozu Kaga, the god of Tiernanog, has been permanently vanquished. But as one god dies, another rises from the ashes. Xibalba this turn, facing off against an Atlantean army of Sacreds and some geared Basalt Kings, so we'll look at more detail in a moment, comes out to play. What do they have? Well, they've got some Xibalban Scorpions. They've got some Shades. The Shades are here to use Steel's strength, their armor negating, admittedly MR negates additional weakness ability to sap the strength of the people that they are attacking, particularly the Basalt Kings. You've got some Sacred Scorpions, which are the size 5, harder hitting, poisonous guys that have the death poison, and armor negating death poison on their tail. Handy. We've got Beast Bats, the sacred bats of Xibalba. Very, very soft and squishy, but they do have attack skill, defense skill, reinvigoration, MR, undying, plus 6 HP plus 1, so that's 7 HP. Unaging doesn't really help them that much, considering they live to be 1,000 years old, and they are only 334. I don't think they're going to make it to 335. But hey, there it is. Finally, they've got a bundle of bats surrounding a mixed unit of mages. We have some Artnakom Blood 1s. We've got an Onaki, a D4 Blood 3 Onaki, in fact, that's come out to play, along with a collection of other mages. On this end, it's a bundle of troops, some Warriors of the Deep with their double attacks, some Living Pillars with their 24 protection and sacred status. We've got 2 Basalt Kings, both with, I believe... No, one doesn't have a hat. One does. So the hero does not have a hat. The other one has a hat. Supported by a single priest, who I assume will now bless them. Did he? I think he got interrupted by a bat. Will he now bless? We'll keep an eye on that. Wait. He blessed the Living Pillars. Huh. What an idiot. Okay, so the priest hasn't blessed the Basalt Kings. He blessed a small group of Sacreds that was advancing to the front. Presumably because collectively there's, like 120-something hit points between those 2 squares in that AoE, and there's only 51 HP in these squares. There's 61 HP per square with the Living Pillar. There's 51 per square with the Basalt Kings. So the priest favoured the Basalt Armoured Sacreds. Awkward. Meanwhile, out the front, the Warriors of the Deep will be using their Basalt Spears very effectively against the Shades. Although some are coming around the side, the Scorpions and Shades are not very well matched against the Atlantean troops. But the big drop is actually happening at the back at the moment. Okay, so the priest is dead, so the Basalt Kings will not be blessed. That said, they're still incredibly tough units. 29 prot, 27 prot, solid. They'll be vulnerable to chips, but not much else, and they're still going to have their fear auras. Meanwhile, the Scorpions are using numbers to their advantage here. They may be outmatched by the Atlantean troops, but there's a lot of numbers here, and this Mage Core is making a difference. I'm not sure why these Beast Bats are advancing on foot. That is probably a scripting error. It's very easy to do if things are in line formation, by the way. Very easy to accidentally have your stuff walk forward. Or maybe it was intended. Either way, the big Scorpions, The big scorpions, the small scorpions, the shades, all of them have now routed the admittedly morale 15 living pillars. They will catch them. The living pillars are not fast. They will waddle off the field being chased by scorpions and beast bats, and there they are now being murdered. So now the question is, can the, not the beast bats, can the scorpions make the difference against the basalt kings? There's no poison resistance that I'm seeing, and both of them are routed from army HP losses. So their stats are down. In fact, it's defense skills 0, thanks to all of the harassment they're facing. So the question is, can the big scorpions get in? Can they apply death poison to the basalt kings? There's one big sacred scorpion here. Let's see if he can get in. There's some small guys who have also death poison. They've got some options here. Can they get these poison stingers on target? They don't want these long dead filling up spots. They don't want living pillars filling up spots. Both of the basalt kings are reduced in HP. The one in the north has been poisoned. He's got more poison than he has HP, so he is ticking down. He will die because he doesn't have the regen in his bless. If he had his bless and he was regenerating, none of this would be a threat right now. But the fact that he's at 84 fatigue is also a problem. One down. Second one is not yet poisoned, but he's at 90 fatigue. Fatigue's not actually going to help that much because he's already defense skill 0, so passing out can't actually help his enemies that much. Let's see if these scorpions can do the job before the Xibalbans rout off from the Feral. There we are, poison got through. Okay, so. For the loss of 10 shades, 5 Sacred Sun Guides, 6 Xibalban Guard Infantrymen, and 8 Xibalban Scorpions. And in exchange, 2 Basalt Kings, Geared, Coral Priest, Shambler Chief, 12 Sacred Living Pillars, and 16 25 Gold Warriors of the Deep. That's gotta hurt. That's gotta sting. So, and Xibalba now gets their capital back, which means they can get at least one turn of recruitment out. Can Atlantis shut this down again? Yeah, sure. Atlantis has its whole empire. They've got Basalt Kings off site searching. But they just really need to bring everything together and shut this down, because Foxy Dean as Xibalba has just proven that he can handle anything. Like, there was some bad luck. There was some bad luck in the Basalt Kings not being blessed, but with only one priest and not a whole bunch of troops screening, there was always a chance that was going to happen. And it happened, and the Scorpions and their poison are a decent enough counter to the Kings if they can get through. And even if the Kings are regenerating, if the poison is counteracting the regen, then there's room for chip damage to make up the rest of the difference. So, Xibalba stands, the new Cadia. We'll see what he recruits now in order to try and protract his holdout. He's still horribly surrounded. He's at war with Relay and Atlantis. Atlantis will regroup, but right now, nothing's really covering these lands. You might even be able to reclaim a few, but you'd be worried that this Basalt King's going to cause damage. But maybe you take the risk. Maybe you take the risk in order to grab a few of these back, grab a few gems and a bit of extra gold before you go back at it. What am I seeing in battles over here? Oh, just a scout pinging the Berytian force. Let's have a quick look at what that is. Bride in waiting, so let's dismarter. 53 spearmen, 41 sacred colossi warriors, and then a whole bunch of mercenary mace and pikeneers. That's a solid force. And then over here, the Summon Sayyidah spell is being used repeatedly, and the Seerim are gathering in ever greater numbers. That said, Makoni is marching south with a few more Gigantes, more Hoplites, Peltests, but with only 5, I'm not sure. I think Sayyirs have got this if this becomes a fight. That said, calling the fact that Berytos wouldn't move out of the fort, raiding back Summer Bay, which is an 86 income province, good idea for Makoni, free gold, etc. Saramatia did not move on Caelum's capital this turn, so even more mammoths about. Any other battles worth noting? Doesn't look like it. Okay, so that's actually a good time to close out this 3-turn set then, because we've got a nation vanquished, and with the nation vanquished we have some new victors. With TNN falling, it's clear the victors are Agartha and Yomi, and with Yomi having breached for Moria, we'll go into turn 22, expecting an assault either then or relatively soon, which will formally end the Elvish alliance. Let's see where that puts our nations at the moment after the last few turns. See Makoni making small progress, but Helheim still, despite a little bit of bad luck with some independence and losing some of the land they took from Berytos, still king of the pile. In second, we've got Makoni, and I believe that would be Saramatia running in third, Yomi running in fourth. Agartha that wasn't doing very well, has pushed themselves up in the province count by taking those provinces. But I'm willing to bet, yeah, see, there's the difference. Even though Agartha is way down there in terms of income, they're way up in provinces. They're way up here in terms of income because of the extra value those capital provinces have. So Makoni still leading the race. Helheim coming in second. More dangerous because they can use their gold more efficiently. That'll be Saramatia in third. Interesting. So Relay is now fourth in income. Interesting. Even though they haven't gone to war or expanded really, they've nabbed 2 provinces off Berytos, and that's it. Who else have we got? Agartha, as we saw, shooting into 5th, and then a spread of nations going all the way down. Caelum, Berytos subsisting at the bottom of the pack in terms of income. Yomi suffering with their nerf, only just overtaking Atlantis now. Atlantis struggling. Like, early leader, struggling since this war with Xibalba has gave them early gains, and they haven't been able to really hold them, and losing the Xibalban capital was just a little bit more damage as well. Gems, it's Makoni. It's Makoni, followed by Helheim. But Helheim with Death and Air Gems is horrifying, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. Actually, I would, because my worst enemy would probably deserve it. Saramatia is coming in third. Is that Relay in fourth? No, it's Atlantis in fourth. Relay way down the bottom in gems. So Relay, big on the income, short on gems. Atlantis, long on gems. Hinnom, the quiet pacifist giants of Hinnom in the upper half so far as gem incomes go. And Yomi trailing behind, actually, surprisingly. Research graph, it's all Relay. It's all Relay. Then it's Ulm. The Fomorians actually still coming in third in research. Their curve's not great anymore because they don't have many majors, but they're still third in terms of accumulated research. If left alone, they probably would have gone ballistic. Saramatia sitting in fourth, whole bunch of people clustered in the middle, and then a few people suffering right down the bottom. Atlantis's research and Pangaea's research is pathetic. I've got that right. Pangaea and Atlantis, that research is pathetic, especially considering Pangaea hasn't been at war at all. Atlantis at least has the excuse of an early war, and I'm not seeing evidence that Pangaea turned their non-research into gem income through site searching either. That's really weak. The other weak nations, like Yomi, who have a stunted economy and problems, are in the lower middle, but these two down the bottom are really struggling. They're going to have to get their research online because we're getting to the point now where the first rushes will be done with. They'll be over. The stage where you can just run people over with good enough sacreds is going to disappear as you get more like level 5 spells start coming out in decent numbers, and those are high enough, influential enough to alter games at least a little bit. Foul Vapors, Horde of Skeletons, full-sized Elementals. These are all spells that come at level 5 that Thunderstrike that can alter battles if they're deployed in sufficient quantities. And if you're not getting them at the same time your opponents are, you're in trouble. Dominion, Helheim, let's not even talk about it, it's Helheim. And then army size, the glorious Maconian slave horde, followed by the humanoid armies of Ulm. Berytos maybe on their last legs, but that army is bulk. They've still got the numbers. Saramatia, solid numbers as well. So, how are we going? Who's gained ground? Who's lost ground? I would contend. So first of all, by not losing ground, really, Helheim is maintaining their leading position. Yomi and Agartha's positions have improved immeasurably. Yomi because their threats against them have evaporated with their victories against the two elvish forces that were coming against them. For the Agarthans, it's because they were relatively compact, and now they've expanded a bit, they've made a friend, and they've taken a capital, all of which is very solid for them. Relay's in a good position in terms of income and also being the game research leader, but they're not long on options next unless they want to go to war with Atlantis. Atlantis and Pangaea are interesting ones. Pangaea, I'm worried about the research count. I really am worried about the research count. I'd like to see that change soon. I would like to see that change soon. Atlantis arguably in a worse position because their research is crappy and they've just suffered a reverse in the war they were trying to force. I think if Atlantis had managed to take this fort and end Xibalba a couple of turns back, they'd sort of been in a Gartharish situation where they're going to be able to leverage a early victory. That gold could turn into extra researchers. It wouldn't matter that they're behind a little bit. They'd catch up quickly and that economy would pay dividends. But with them being thrown off and losing so much, I think they're vulnerable. And they've got to wonder whether or not the water nation of Relay, who's been working with them, will see this and decide that maybe cooperation is overrated and the water should be mine. It's an interesting thing to consider. I don't know whether that diplomacy will go. I will try and update you. The coalition against Berytos has been mostly successful. However, you now have capital fort syndrome. Only it's not just the capital, it's also Uzid because that's where they can summon their demons. In that you are left with an enemy that has 2 powerful forts, lots of armies, and is willing to say, come at me, bro. And defending, they're going to have the Seirs, they're going to have a big army of Sacreds, and we're reaching the timing now where we can expect full-size elementals to start coming out, which means full-size air elementals, which are a counter to a lot of the stuff we've seen so far. Like this Ormish army would get wrecked by air elementals, and it would even, like, they can kill Seirs, but Seirs can kill them. Serum can kill them as well. So, I'm not sure what to expect there. If Helheim gets into trouble, they can mono-drop. I'm not sure the others have quite those same options. So if I was to say who is doing well, Helheim was doing the best and is still doing the best. Meconi is still putting in a valiant effort. A couple of nations have suffered reverses. Atlantis, TNN being eliminated, Fimoria almost being eliminated, Caelum on their last legs. Pangaea is suffering a little bit of an economy problem. There are nations that are struggling a bit, nations that are booming. Saramatia is doing well. They're getting ready to go for Caelum. I think they're going to get it. They've grouped their army into a death stack. Caelum is basically theirs, unless there's something I have no way of anticipating there. Yomi and Agartha are in manifestly better positions. Yomi because they fought this war close to perfectly and demonstrated what you can do with Dione before magic comes around to counter them. And Agartha with the well-timed backstab maneuver that used the best of what Agartha has to offer in the early game, which is Mind Blast and Siege Strength to show us all how it's done and pinch off a bit of relatively undefended territory and take a capital in record time. So that's the state of play. We got our old leaders. We got our new contenders. Maybe. We've got our middle powers that are still in the play, solidly in play. That'd be Relay. That'd be Hinnom, who have some economic strength regardless. And then we've got those that are struggling but making valiant last stands. Let's watch for the Caelum last stand, Berytos, and brave noble bat Xibalba. That's it for this cycle of turns. It is turn 21. I'll be back relatively shortly in turn 22.